All right, everybody, this is In Liberty and Health, brought to you by Accent Sledge Supplements. Use code Matovcik10 at checkout to get all your gear to make you a little bit more jacked and tan. I got my brother Rob Cowburn today with me today. He's a guy that kind of brought me into the LP with open arms. He's been awesome over the last year and a half that I've known him. Rob, how you doing today, brother?
Excellent, man. Good to be here. Glad we finally got to do it.
For sure. Yeah, I've been looking forward to getting some of these closer MC guys in. I had Adam on, Anthony Portillo, and a few other guys, but I got to get Mark on next. I love talking to all you guys. You guys have welcomed me with open arms, my brother and everybody else. And you in particular have been kind of someone in this whole Mises caucus here in PA that's been very friendly to everybody, even when they slap your hand when you reach out to them. So I think that's something I really appreciate about you. But, we're kind of here today to talk about your run for chair of the party overall, correct?
Yeah, yep. So I've decided to run for LPPA chair. A lot of went into that decision, but I think right now might be the right time and place. So we'll give it a shot and see if that's what the people want.
Absolutely. Well, I had one of your opponents, if you will, on Christine Womack, and it was interesting for me because I never really had the chance to talk to her. And, being that we're both Mises Caucus guys, we all kind of get one side of the story. So she reached out to me and I felt it was fair to have her on because I've mostly had pro Mises Caucus people on, but I've also had people who are not in the Mises Caucus on. But, full disclosure, I'm biased towards the Mises Caucus, but I'm always open to all points of views. Why did you decide to run and throw your hat in there?
Well, I'm a busy guy, and it's not that I have really all that much time, but this party has really, really started to put its big boy pants on in this last year, and I think that we've really got some momentum behind us. I think everyone's looking at Pennsylvania right now. With the Moulton maneuver, we just had 170 plus people elected. I think that's a great accomplishment. I think we're growing the party. We're getting, the biggest conventions we've ever had, and everything's going in the right direction. I just think that the chair position in particular has been a very misunderstood role, particularly in the LPPA. I keep telling this everywhere I go that really, if you're doing it right, it's not a glamorous position. It's really more like being a hall monitor. I think that we've had great people in leadership, but they haven't quite understood what the role of the chair is. And now my background as an attorney, I think that what I can bring to the chair position is structure, organization, and abiding by the rules of our party and the Robert's Rules of Procedure, which we do. I have to practice in the rules of procedure every day. I understand the purpose of them and why we got them. And I think that I can bring that structure and that stability and consistency to the LPPA, where we, infamously now have had 7-8+ hour monthly board meetings, and it's really causing a lot of people a lot of animosity. It's feeding into the factioning and the conflict. So I think that a little bit of structure in my experience, using the rules of procedure in my law practice, I can bring some structure and some organization and some efficiency and effectiveness to our board meetings, and maybe hopefully that'll bring down some of this contentiousness.
Yeah, well, we were talking a little bit off air about the whole paleo and Libertarian Party strategy.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people critique the Libertarian Party, reasonably so, because of some of the stuff that we see going on. Like, we all know this is a smaller pond, but this pond is getting big, and it's getting big fast.
Yeah.
People outside looking in, when they hear about an 8-hour board meeting on a freaking Saturday, nobody wants to do that for the Libertarian Party because, as it stands right now, not that many people care about us. About 2 years ago, I would have said nobody cares about us, but this pond's filling up fast. And I think there's some people in this party who don't like that pond filling up as fast as it is. But, what are we here to do? We're here to create liberty, or are we here to just have a social club where we can say, I'm the treasurer of this county and I held up the meeting because I didn't understand the rules. I'm going to cry in front of everybody for attention. Maybe that's a little bit more details than people need to know. But, like, if we want to get people in the party, we can't be acting like this. We can't have people held over for 7 hours on a fucking Saturday night. Nobody wants to do that. Right. So I think it's good that you feel you can kind of bring down the fracturing and the tensions in the party. Um, does it seem like a lot of people feel the same way when you're in these meetings?
I think it's an interesting situation that's happening there, because it really, I think almost everybody who's at our board meeting is there for the right reasons. They're all very well intended. They're all very hardworking, and we got to remember, these are volunteers. These are people who are at the end of their week. They've already put in 40 plus hours. They're working hard. They've already got all of their local stuff that they're doing, and now they're coming to serve on the state board, in addition to everything else that's going on,
Right.
family, job, your local county stuff already. So I think people are already at their wits end, and we've been kind of conditioned into expecting this animosity, into expecting this rivalry type of mentality. And to, not that it was the intentions of our leadership, but I think things kind of got away from them, and it fostered this attitude of this expected controversy, this expected back and forth debate. And that kind of grew over not just the last year, but for quite a while now in the party. But a little bit of structure can go a long way, but really the issue that we're having is a crisis of identity in the Libertarian Party. And this is something that stems back to, I think, the methodological approach that the party has taken over the last 10, 15 years. There was an approach to everyone's credit, there was a lot of good people working on this, and they put in their best effort, tons of hours, tons of effort to try and make this work. But the approach was to meet people where they're at, bring them in on the issues that they care about, which is the right thing to do. That's step number one. But what we forgot to do was tell them the rest of the side of the libertarian story. We forgot to fill them in on what the rest of this whole thing was about. So now when they came in and they met somebody from the other side who got brought into a different avenue, brought in through different interests, they met in the middle, and they kind of like, well, wait a second, this wasn't what I was told this was all about. This isn't where, I was told that this is this. You're not a real libertarian. They told me this is what this is about. So we kind of had this clash of interest and identity, because we didn't fill in these new people on the whole other side of the story. The idea was logic and a solid idea to give a try, but we got so afraid to offend even one person. We didn't want to lose not one, that we ended up losing everybody. So I think that the story that we should learn from this is that we got to be unafraid to be full unapologetic libertarians. So I think really this animosity comes from there, more than even with the best or worst intentions of an executive committee on a state party. If we don't solve this cultural crisis, this crisis of identity, we're going to continue to have these things, whether or not we're having efficient meetings or not.
Right, right. Well, I'm sure you saw the newsletter that the LPPA, well, I should say the LPPA sent out, but it went to all the people who are members of the LPPA for
Yeah,
the Libertarian Defense Fund. Now, I
yeah,
have no problem with PACs or people wanting to be of a certain group within the party, but it seems to me a little fishy when you're using the resources that are, from what I understand, only available to certain people within the party who were duly elected, to their credit,
yeah.
and then they step down and then they use that information to promote one specific side of this divide. And the biggest frustration about this whole part, or about this whole deal, is that everybody in the whole deal agrees on probably at least 90% of the issues. We
Yeah.
just disagree on how we should use this said
Yes.
vehicle to get to the ends.
Well
And
said.
we're like fighting tooth and nail. This is like a all out fight to the death
Yeah.
for the Libertarian Party. And I'm not saying that the Libertarian Party isn't worth anything, but like, you guys realize what we're fighting for here. If you guys want to take over the party, you're not like grabbing anything insanely valuable that cannot possibly be built elsewhere. Yeah, there's gonna be some effort, but like, we want the same stuff. And if we want the most amount of people in the party to do the most amount of work so we can spread this message, so we can elect people, then why are we, causing this fracturing? What are we doing? And this is why I've kind of said a lot lately, I don't care about the Libertarian Party outside of its ability to create liberty. I care about liberty. That's
Yeah.
that's how all libertarians should function.
Yeah. I just said the same thing last night at there was a Q&A host, and I said the same thing last night, that I don't identify as a libertarian. I identify as an individual, and I identify with the liberty movement. And I actually caught a little bit of heat
Mhm.
for that statement. That I'd like to clarify, just for anybody who's concerned about that. I'm not saying that I don't consider myself a libertarian. I identify myself as an individual, and I think we should all remember that the most important thing is to respect people and their right to self-ownership and their right to their individuality.
Beautiful, yeah.
Then anything after that isn't a part of your identity. It's a part of your, maybe your community and your culture. But we must remember, our identities are sacred. Our identities are very important. And seeing each other purely as individuals is, at the same time, it's the most autonomous but the most communal thing, because it attaches us to every other person in our common identity as individuals. So no, I don't consider my identity as a libertarian, but yes, I absolutely associate with libertarians, and I'm a member of the Libertarian Party. But I've had concerns lately that we're losing our way a bit in the principled and philosophical view. And then what does this thing really become? I don't want to be a part of something that's just a pure political machine that's just trying to get the organization to beat another organization. If we're not moving the liberty movement forward, man, then what are we doing? Um, so that has been definitely a concern. But I think that that's something that we, the Mises Caucus, is one of our strongest points. We advocate for being absolutely solid and unafraid on the issues that we do not argue about. The war on drugs, foreign policy, um, corporate welfare. These are things that we can get together on, all libertarians across all different anything, and we can have a common identity, and we can at least know that for sure this is what we are. So I think we should focus on those things. And then some of the other things where libertarians can differ, like on abortion, on borders, on things like that, then maybe we shouldn't take a position as a party, but just let libertarians do their parts, is what they want there. Now, I think that we catch a lot of flack as the Mises Caucus, because we people were really kind of unsure about what we were when we came in. We came in kind of hot, we came in kind of fast, and I think that people were like, hold on, let's wait up a second. But this thing just got steamrolling, and that, I think that created some uneasiness, which might have led to the turmoil and the conflict. But if we just remember, we're all here for the liberty movement, man. I think that clears up a lot of stuff. um,
Right.
on just real fast, on the topic of the
Sure.
whole libertarian defense fund thing, I think it's
Mhm.
fine for anybody to advocate for whatever they want if they think that's the right thing to
Mhm.
go. But this is something that our leadership, if you're familiar with the Cathedral Caucus, this is basically the Cathedral Caucus put into a pack, and this is run by members of the leadership here in Pennsylvania. And I think that's pretty disheartening, where their motivation is to either keep out or rid the party of people who have different views than them. And that's a dangerous topic. So I think we've got to be careful about that.
Right. And it seems to be this, uh, they almost use it kind of like, and I've been criticizing Hoppians, not that I don't have love for these people, but um, I see them oftentimes use the right wing thing where they specifically harken back to everything being right wing. You have to be right wing.
Yeah.
And it almost seems like sometimes they use that term fast and loose, where basically it eventually becomes just this amorphous blob of everything that's right wing is good and everything that's left wing is bad. Because you'll hear them say, oh, well,
Mm,
neocons are left wing. Okay, so Ron
yeah. Yeah.
DeSantis, if you look at his voting record and what he would do as president, he's inseparable from neocons, but
Yeah.
all the
Well
Hoppians
said.
love him, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So is
Yeah.
he, do you guys love a left winger? Or are we just defining right wing as whatever's good? So but that kind of,
Mm,
what I'm
mm,
saying here is basically they're using this takeover as anything they don't like, right?
yeah.
You can find these words and attach whatever you want to it because you're not objective in what you're speaking about. You could just throw whatever in there. You say, look, that's a takeover.
Yeah.
People doing things that we don't 100% agree with, that's a takeover. So we have to stop it. And I'm with you. You can organize whatever group you want, but when it's leadership who's responsible for, directing the party and controlling the resources, when they outright show that they have a bias, then how are you supposed to have confidence in these people?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. And it's not just bias; it's that they want to remove certain people as though they shouldn't be in this
Right.
party. And we are in no state of turning people away. We need not just to not turn people away. We need to figure out how to contact everybody and help them through their process to become, this whole. We have the most beautiful political message that's ever been devised by man, and we need to help people get to here, not push them
Right.
away because we might have some differences. So.
Yeah, you were criticized for, I believe it was saying that you wanted to remove some planks from the party's beliefs. I won't
Yeah.
say who exactly it was, but
Yeah.
all I could think was just read because I kept seeing you tagged at status after status after status,
Yeah.
and it's. I think you actually had a fair point, and you were kind of touching on this a little bit earlier, but perhaps we shouldn't staple every single core tenet to the party's platform.
Right.
And even Republicans, Democrats essentially do this, where there's difference within the party as well, because there are some Republicans that are pro-war, and there's some Republicans that are anti-war. There's
Mhm.
some Democrats that are pro-gun, and there's some Democrats that are anti-gun. There's differences within the party, and perhaps maybe it is a little bit better to leave it up to the candidate to decide how they want to display a message. So I'm very pro-life through and through,
Yeah.
but I understand there's probably some libertarians. Murray Rothbard comes to mind that would
Um,
disagree with that position.
yeah, I'm adamantly pro-choice, but we can come together in a libertarian message and bring the message of liberty forward, even through those differences.
Mhm.
Ron Paul always said that the message of liberty is unifying, not divisive. So
Right.
so I think it's very important to remember that there are issues where we can legitimately disagree. There are issues where there are merits on both sides, and it's up to anybody to decide for themselves through their community, through their churches, through their family, through their um through their what's their virtues and their principled upbringing, how they want to fall on these things. But there's legitimate issues, legitimate merits to both sides of these arguments, like the abortion issue, like the border issue, and the issue that got brought up last night was the gender issue, that every person should be able to define for themselves what gender, and the government should have no role in that.
Mhm.
And to be fair, I had not known about the plank last night, and what I said was that I'm very wary of bringing in anything that is tends to tribalize us or faction us and put us into labeled groups, because I think that's the wrong way we should go. We should always remember to affirmatively assert the individual aspect of what we're doing here, that the rights come from individuals and not in groups. But to be quite frank, I've been talking with one of the people I'm running against, actually John Waldberger. He's kind of opening my eyes, and he linked me up with some people from the outright, and I'd like to have a conversation with them about what exactly that plank is that they want. And I'm always open to changing my mind,
Mhm.
but I'd like to hear from them first what it is that they're doing and what the purpose is before I make a decision like that. But I think that maybe that question last night was brought about deliberately to maybe throw some bad will, but we'll leave that to people to decide. But again, I just think that focusing on the individual, if we recognize to assert all the rights of the individual and afford everybody those things, then all the rest of it kind of falls into line. But yeah, there are things that we shouldn't put on these planks because it's going to divide us. If we take a position on some of these things, it's going to keep other people out. And let's let reasonable minds differ. Let's come together on the things that we can, and then let's move forward into freedom and roll back the role of state in our lives.
Right. I think that's a very, very simple way to put it. And I think that's a great way to put it too, because there's so many people that get very contentious about these topics. Like if you
Yeah.
look back in, it was like 2018, 2017, Tommy Lahren had got fired from the Blaze for coming out as pro-choice. And
Hmm.
she's, a die-in-the-hole Republican. And hey, she put forth conservative reasoning, just like you can make a libertarian, logic out of abortion. And I have no problems with that. I'm not going to go die on the freaking hill of this. Like
Yeah.
you said you're pro-choice, I'm pro-life. Who cares? We have
Yeah.
difference of
Yeah.
opinion, but there's no need to sit here and
Yeah.
type out paragraph after paragraph after paragraph and think that we need to
Yeah.
make a big spectacle of this. If
Well,
you run as a candidate and I run, then people can figure out who they like more,
absolutely
and
right. Yeah.
whoever wins is whoever wins, and that's what I think we are about. We are about as libertarians,
Yeah,
right? Free markets,
yeah,
freedom of association, and freedom of
yeah.
choice.
Freedom of ideas too. We got to have the free flow
Absolutely.
of ideas. But the thing that I'm for certain is adding bureaucracy to these issues by codifying them into laws is not the way to go. If we want to have individual areas where you make your own laws in your communities, that's great. Do that.
Right.
That's the way we should deal with this issue. But having a single rule that across the board for how everybody is supposed to manage their lives on topics that you can have genuine, reasonable, meritorious differences, that just seems atrocious to me, no matter what the issue is.
Right. So I think we kind of skipped over this. What kind of brought you into the liberty movement? We've already been going for a little bit,
Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
that's usually how I start. But yeah, I'll go ahead and
yeah.
dive into
Oh,
that, and then kind of how you got to where you are now.
sure, yeah. So I was kind of apolitical. I grew up in a home that one parent was a Republican, one was a Democrat. My first election was George Bush's second term. I voted for Bush because I was like, oh, taxes, these aren't good. And then I realized the war aspect of it. And then 2008, I started to get turned on to Ron Paul, but ended up eventually voting for Obama because I was like, well, that Bush thing didn't work. Let's try it the other way. But then I went back and started watching a lot of the videos of Ron Paul again, and just, man, did he fire me up. That Rudy Giuliani moment and just the bravery and everything, talking about the Federal Reserve. I kind of just fell right down the rabbit hole. So by the 2012 election, man, I was just so fully on board. Um, I think what happened after the Ron Paul campaigns in 2008 2012 was, you know, those campaigns created millions of brand new people who were liberty minded, but we didn't have a home. The Republican Party didn't want us. They just wanted to go back to the status quo of authoritarianism. The Libertarian Party didn't want us because they were kind of trying the more left leaning, pragmatic approach, like I was kind of talking about earlier, and they didn't want the Ron Paul people. So we were kind of homeless, So I kind of turned off on politics at that point, and it wasn't until 2019 where I was just it might have been 2020 actually, where I had just I went down the Austrian rabbit hole real hard and ended up getting into the Mises Institute's economics graduate program, the very first class that they had. So I was real big into the Mises thing, stuff, anything Mises I was all about. And one day I was scrolling down in my Facebook, and I saw a meme that a friend had posted, and up in the corner was a little watermark, and it said Mises Caucus. What the fuck is this? So I started looking into them. Like, Tom Woods is on the board. They're talking about all the things that I'm into. Wow, I gotta better take a look at this. So I reached out, and that's kind of what brought me back into the belief that the party might do something, because I was not impressed by Gary Johnson, particularly in the 2016 campaign with Bill Weld. I voted for Jorgensen in 2020, but I really wasn't too impressed by any of that.
Yeah, I think
Um,
everybody who voted for her kind of felt the same way. Full disclosure, and I'll probably piss everybody off when I say this. I donated to Joe Jorgensen. It wasn't like
yeah,
lump sums of cash, but I did donate to her campaign. But
yeah,
she was solid on all the libertarian stuff, despite all the shit that people
yeah,
gave her. But she just wasn't
yeah.
enthusiastic about the message.
Yes, I agree. I don't think there was anything particularly bad about Joe Jorgensen. In fact,
Right.
I liked her kind of her older message stuff. And Spike, I think Spike is great.
Mhm.
But we were just like ripe in the middle of this lockdowns and things like that, and they were silent. The campaign was basically silent, and the
Right.
National Party was silent. And I was like, boy, this is no good. And then here comes this thing, the Mises Caucus, with all this like like, no, we're against this. No, this is not right. We got to take a stand. I'm like, all right, I'm getting fired up. Maybe there's a time to take a look at the Libertarian Party. So that's how I got another look. So I ended up reaching out to my local Allegheny County affiliate here in Pittsburgh, and went in. And the very first day I got put on the board, got made the outreach director, and I kind of ran from there and just hit the ground running. Now, I got multiple roles. I'm the treasurer now in Allegheny County. I'm on the outreach. I'm on financial committee. In the LPPA, I'm on legal action committee and media relations. And I'm the state board rep. So I just kind of basically sold out completely, and like was like, I'm gonna go hard as I can for this party, because this is the time is now, and this is the place to be. And if we can't do it here, then man, I don't know what we're gonna do. We got a hell of an opportunity right now. Like I was saying earlier, the attention is on Pennsylvania. We're cruising better than anybody, and we really have an opportunity here. And I'm real excited.
Absolutely. And after this past year, when I seen all the people got elected, and it's not like these people, um, it's not like a lot of them were these great positions, but there were some people that were elected mayors, city councilmen. Ben Severs, who's literally like two
Yeah,
blocks over, got elected as city councilman. He's been on the show. Um,
Ben's a man.
so yeah, he is. You and I were talking a little bit off the show about the paleo movement,
Yeah.
and I was kind of going back and forth with these people on Twitter today. Well, I should say I was particularly, but I was kind of observing. I put out a poll and I had asked, what do you think is the best way to reduce government?
Mm.
Libertarian LP or paleo GOP? And within a few hours, it had over 500 votes. I think it's probably up to like 1,100 right now. And I only have like 600 followers on Twitter. So, I
No
mean, it's not
kidding.
this huge follower. Oh my God. Dude, it blew the fuck up. Pete Quinones, Tho Bishop, Reed Coverdale, guys who've
There
been
you
on the
go.
show. But I
There you
mean, I'm
go.
like, these people are
Yeah.
going back and forth with all these people on Twitter, and it's really
Yeah.
blowing up. Um, it's interesting, but at first I was very biased towards the LP, but now I'm kind of more of like, whatever way you think is best to spread liberty, do
Yeah.
that. So the reason why I kind of went on that long tirade is because a lot of people were saying, oh no, the LP will never win, the LP won't work. But I'm like, you guys don't really know that. And I really think that's changing, because if you look here in Pennsylvania, once again, we have mayors. These people are in charge of
Yeah.
fucking towns.
Right.
Nate
Yeah.
Job was like 10 votes off of winning against an incumbent. Not like,
Mm.
it was an uncontested race, an incumbent. He was only like 10 votes away. So, people can dish on the LP all they want, but I'm thinking here in Pennsylvania, it's a little bit of a different story. Like some of the Republicans that
Yeah.
are running here, my brother and I went to an event, and one of the flyers, the guy had literally said he wanted to charge people who attack police as a hate crime.
Hmm.
And if you use it in cancel culture, will be persecuted as harassment.
Mhm.
So how do you define these things? Like it's like ad-libbing leftist bullshit under a
Yeah.
MAGA banner.
Yeah.
So I know it's a long tirade, but
Yeah.
you know, why not the Republican Party for you, and why the GO or why the
Yeah.
LP?
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, I think that we should be that this is why I come from a stance of the liberty movement, and what tools do we have available to us to advance the liberty movement and really make a difference in those areas. I think that we should use every single avenue available to us. If people have a passion in doing it through the Libertarian Party, either through campaigns or through issues, then do that. If you have an interest in coming up through the GOP and trying to return it back to some classical sort of liberalism, do that. Let's fight this war on every front that we can and see where we can make ground, because it's not going to be we're never going to get in either through the Libertarian Party or through the GOP and legislate freedom down from on high. This has
Yeah.
turned into this bureaucracy, this federal system has turned into their tool. It's turned into such just a leviathan, just to use the terms of Robert Higgs, that we're never going to be able to use their tool to return back to freedom. What we have to do is reach the people, and we need to do that through every avenue possible. So I think the Tho bishops using the paleo strategy to get back into the GOP and return to really classical liberalism and conservatism is a great idea. How many people can you affect? I bet he can reach tons of people through that and get them back
Absolutely.
and get them thinking about the liberty, the message of liberty in that avenue. Here we can do it through in our I think this is the thing the Libertarian Party is missing big on, is our fight, our game is at the local level, using the principles of local nullification and getting a couple of ordinances passed and getting a couple of people elected. You can have a huge impact. And we can, if we get in each of our communities and we affect the people there, then all of a sudden the entire nation has changed. So we need to just get in and affect the people to no longer tolerate this type of stuff. And then we can use things like nullification at the local level to bring about this change. We don't need to legislate it down on high. We can do it in our communities, and that's where this libertarian thing is going to succeed. And that's also where I think the impact of the paleos in the GOP can have is getting people's minds changed about what's an acceptable form of and the proper role of government.
Right, I completely agree. And I kind of wish more libertarians kind of had that same mindset. We kind of need to ditch this, strict party affiliation, because you might have
Yeah.
seen I left the Thunderdome chat just because, well,
Oh, me too, man. It doesn't.
obvious reasons. Some of them got pissed off at me because I said I don't think the Libertarian Party should really run anybody against Ian Smith, who's running for Congress out in New Jersey.
Sure.
Who's like more nationally known than the dude who defied lockdowns and accrued, literally millions of dollars in fines, goes
Yeah.
on Tucker Carlson and, is now running for Congress and loved in his community.
Right.
Why should we run somebody against him?
Right.
If you're
Just
going to run,
just to do it. Right. Just to do it.
right. Yeah. Now, if you have somebody that may want to push him, primary him to make it better on some issues, okay, but I don't think you're really going to be successful.
Yeah.
The dude voted for Ron Paul. He
Yeah.
told me on this show he voted for Ron Paul.
Yeah.
What else do you want out of a Republican?
Yeah.
He's not running as a libertarian. Who cares?
Right.
Is he going to bring about liberty? Yes, because that's what he's been all about these last couple of years. So, what are we doing here? Do we want to
Right.
create liberty, or do we want to create just someone with an L next to their name that's in a
Yes.
chair?
Yeah.
I don't care who's in the chair. I care about the result.
Yeah. Well, if we know anything about Austrian economics, we know the resources are scarce and we really got to pick our battles. What good is it doing? How much good is there to gain by running against somebody who's a good Republican and obviously everybody's got their faults, but if they're solid on certain issues and there's ground to be gained through that avenue, why not use our resources in a different way? Because we got to attack these people on all fronts, so we really got to think strategically about picking our battles. But this is something that the idea of like strategy planning has really been opened up to me recently. We've got a guy by the name of Johannes Earnhardt here in Allegheny County.
Yeah.
Johannes is amazing. He does these strategy plans for companies and different organizations professionally. And in Allegheny County, we've been implementing a strategy plan, 5 years out and things like that. And it's really opening our eyes to, what is legitimately the progress that we can make? Where can we focus our energies to have the best impact right now? Where do we need to hold off on? What are we maybe not ready to do yet? I was really interested in running a mayor candidate in this last election series against Ed Gainey. I wanted the messaging to get out there and everything like that. But the point was made to me, well, what if we do, and then people turn into our organization now and they're looking for us to be the place to come and let them know what to do next, and our house is not in order. What happens when the action oriented person comes in, looks at the party, and they've got to put this thing back together before they can even use it? They're just going to walk right away. So knowing where we're at, knowing how to harness the resources we have to their best uses, I think is something that we really need to think about. And just running a libertarian because we can is maybe not always the best. If the party isn't ready to receive the attention that they're going to generate, maybe we need to think about where you can better use those resources, getting your house together first.
Absolutely. And I love that message because it's not just applicable to the political realm. This podcast is mostly about making yourself better, doing whatever you can right now to just put yourself a little bit further ahead of where you were the day before.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I think that's reflected a lot in the political LP is that, we're not ready for maybe a national candidate. Not saying that we shouldn't run one, but, we're not going to take over the White House. But we're seeing that, now after years and building up strong local LP chapters, maybe we are ready to start doing city council. Maybe we are strong enough to start taking over some different cities and neighborhoods. But, we got to start there before we start trying to send people to Congress or, running these huge campaigns and dumping all this money into a candidate who, just logistically will not win. No, I'm not saying you shouldn't run people in races that they may not win. What I'm saying is, just like you said, let's not waste resources when there's something, perhaps, hey, maybe we could just store this away for the following year. Maybe we have someone that's a little bit more viable on a lower level that can win and still achieve success there. We need to be strategic about this. And, like we've both said now, just throwing a libertarian wherever we could put a libertarian maybe just isn't the best answer.
Well, because you follow that road to its end, and then you get the answer that Nick Sarwark gave during that famous debate with Dave Smith, and that if you run Dick Cheney or Adolf Hitler, we should support him. And then, that's not a road that we want to ever get close to going down. So we got to be very careful. Get our house in order. And then you're right. This just applies to life. Get your house in order. Know where you're at. Make your goals, but set them realistically. But don't put on your pants that are too big for you. You know what I mean? You're just gonna end up tripping over yourself. So we got to remember where we're at, where we're going, and be very deliberate and not. We don't want to procrastinate, but set the proper goals down in a reasonable time length to where you eventually want to be, but know where you're at, because you can do some harm to yourself and to your organization.
Right, I completely agree. So kind of shifting back to your run for chair, you worked on Rob Luther's campaign and somebody else's campaign. I just can't
Drew
remember off the
Rea.
top of my head. Drew Rea? Yeah, he's awesome.
Drew's a man. Oh
Yeah.
man, he, for being so young, man, he's got some of the best oratory that I've heard in a long time.
Yeah, and he is a very, very great speaker. You and I were at the Second Amendment convention out at the Isla Field, and yeah, he kind of gave an impromptu speech, and he's like, what, 22, 23?
23, yeah.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
So
he's gonna be just fine.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to him, seeing how his kind of growth comes about in the Libertarian Party. What did your work look like in their campaigns, and how do you feel that applies to your potential position as chair?
Sure. Yeah. So both of those were special elections. So these happened real fast.
Mhm.
So there was a call for volunteers, and what I did was show up to their events and try and bring all the local people that I have to try and rally up support for them, but also did canvassing with them, door knocking, and things like that. So it wasn't the long term kind of campaign planning that I think you see with the usual election process, but it happened so fast, and there was such an importance put on it because of the level of office that was there for, and plus Rob and Drew were great candidates, and I really got behind them. So we were able to get them in news, we were able to get them in covering a wide range of their constituency by doing door knocking and things like that.
Nice.
Yeah. The other campaign experience that I had was with the Molten Maneuver. I provided some legal help to challenges to their paperwork, the signatures, and
real quick, I hate to interrupt you.
yeah.
Can you elaborate on the Molten Maneuver real quick? I know what it is, just in case anybody else doesn't know.
Yeah, sure. The Molten Maneuver is something developed by Dr. Chuck Moulton. He's here in Pennsylvania, but he has had a pretty big role at the National Party as well. But what he devised was a plan to identify local races where no one is running, and we have ballot access here in Pennsylvania. So if we just get a libertarian on the ballot into a position where no one is running, people are just going to check the box, the one person that's there. You don't have to write in anybody. There's nobody running against them. And through this process, we were able to get 176 libertarians elected here in Pennsylvania. The next best state, I think, was 16. So so it was really a great idea. But so I assisted in those campaigns by there's signature requirements you have to be as a third party to get on the ballot.
Yep.
And there's a number of counties that wanted to raise that requirement. It goes off of how many votes were cast for the winning positions in each district, but there were counties that wanted to use how many votes were cast for the president. So we were able to get through working with the solicitors and the elected officials in these counties, get them to kind of see our side, and we were able to get 66 out of the 67 counties in Pennsylvania to agree with our position, where we had a number of challenges going into that. So I was able to help them out on the ballot access with the signature requirements, where we had a bunch of challenges.
Mm-hmm. Does that kind of cover up the legal work? I kind of cut you off a little bit, but
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And, we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but I think this is where we're talking about the strength of the LP, and there are some Mises Caucus guys who kind of downplay this Molt maneuver.
Yeah.
But the way I kind of look at it is we don't know what the long-term result of this is. So we
Right.
have 176 elected libertarians, and some of them may be just constables or
Yeah.
order of elections or whatever seats that once again are uncontested races. But once again, what does this look like 5 years down the line if we keep
Yeah.
doing this and keep running them? And then eventually, all of Pennsylvania is like, holy shit, there's like an air of legitimacy to the Libertarian Party. And maybe these people really can win. Maybe we should start casting a vote for the Libertarian governor. Maybe we should cast a vote for the Libertarian congressman. I really think it gives, once again, way to a breath of legitimacy towards the Libertarian Party.
I like to put it as viability. It gives viability
Right.
to these that there's going to be a point. I don't know what the percentage number is, but it's somewhere, I think, around 20%. Once we hit this certain point, then the general populace is going to see the Libertarian Party as a viable option to compete with the two major parties. So I think the Moulton maneuver has the potential to go a long way towards achieving that viability goal. Now, but the question is always, what now? What's next? What's the call to action? In and of itself, 176 libertarians looks great on a headline, and it's something that we can all congratulate each other on doing. It's the first time that we've done that. But what now? How do we turn that into the next level? How do we raise the bar on that? So I think what it is up to us to do now is to determine how to turn that 176 into 300, and how to turn these uncontested elections that we've won into contested victories, because I think we had about 15 contested election victories, but here's what we can use. Now we've got all of these people who can put on their resume, I was an elected official. Now when I run for sheriff, when I run for mayor, when I run for city councilman, I can tell you, I've been an elected official. I've already done this. I have some credit. We can use these uncontested victories to turn them into the next step and take that and really start getting the positions with some teeth on them. So I think the Molt maneuver goes a long way to the perception of viability in this party, and it gives us the potential to turn these into some positions with real teeth. But not only do we when we run these contested elections, now we might and maybe we win and we can really make some policy change. But even if we don't, if we're running in a high profile contested election, like running a mayor in the city of Pittsburgh, we're going to get news coverage. And even if we don't win now, we're going to at least be able to have the platform to set the message out there. So this Molt maneuver can, I agree with you. Some people in the Mises Caucus downplay the potential, and I want to be clear that it's the potential of the Molt maneuver, because in and of itself, having a bunch of auditors and constables, you're right, you're not going to really make much policy change. But what we do with it next has a lot of potential to, and if we use it the right way, if we use it on top of the other efforts that we're doing, if we use it in connection with the issue coalitions that we're doing, if we use it in connection with running contested campaigns, now it's really it really serves a purpose beyond just grabbing a couple of headlines and looking good in our newsletter.
Right. And I think that's something that, perhaps this divide in the party can agree on, because it seems like the divide is almost like messaging versus getting people elected. But I don't see why it has to be one or the other.
I agree.
And I don't see why people on this divide can't just say, look, you focus on this and I'll focus on that. And look, we're going to work together. So, if I'm busy getting people elected and you're busy working on messaging, then why don't we both support, let's say this candidate, and then I'll work to get him elected, and you can kind of tailor his messaging and work his social media. So that way, once again, we all work together. Everybody's happy. We get elected libertarians with bold messaging. So do you see either one as more important than the other, or do you see them both as just, kind of, I don't want to say two sides of the same coin, but both kind of equally important?
So I say it in a different way. Since I've joined this thing and realized the divide that's going on, I've said we're two arms of the same body. When we need to use those arms to pick each other up. This has a lot in line with what I was talking about between the Paleo GOP approach and the Libertarian Party approach. Listen, we need to be addressing these things at all fronts. If you are a person who is into the messaging, then come on in. Let's figure out how we can use the party as a messaging and education tool. Let's figure out how we can give these candidates good messaging strategies. But if you what you're interested in happens to be in supporting campaigns and seeing success at the ballot boxes, then get in with these candidates and run. Go door knocking every day, round up the volunteers, get the flyers out there, get the phone banking going, put the signs in the yards. We need to be doing this on all fronts, and we are cooperative and we're not um one or the other. We not only can we must be doing both of these things. And once we realize that we're on the same team and we can have different interests and still be driving this thing forward together, I think we're gonna be just fine. But
Right. Yeah. Well, how do you see our convention going? This is going to air on, oh my God, I probably should know this right off the bat, but this will be airing on the 28th, and right now it's the
yeah,
23rd. So shortly thereafter,
right.
how do you think our convention's going to go?
I don't think that we're going to have the same problems that we had last year. I don't think the 180-day thing is going to be nearly as contentious of an issue that it was last year. But nor do I think the elections are really going to be that contentious, because us, the candidates ourselves, has actually been very respectful to each other, and
That's what I've
we're
noticed.
some of a lot of the noise is coming from people outside of the actual candidates themselves, and people are going to do what they're going to do. But I don't think that we're going to have the same type of contentions that we had last year. Where I see us getting bogged down is in our bylaws and our platform amendments, and actually probably in our delegate elections, because you got to remember we're electing delegates to go to national convention this year, and if certain interest groups have things go their way, I think there's going to be a lot of sad faces at convention. But we didn't get to bylaws and platforms last year, and I think everybody can recognize that our bylaws are just completely lacking in so many ways, and it's a detriment to this party, and that's part of the reason why we're having really long meetings as well. So I don't think that we're going to see the issues we saw last year. I do think that we're going to see maybe some new ones in the electing of delegates for the national convention and in our bylaws, because I think we've got close to 100 bylaw amendments proposed.
Yeah, yeah, I remember last year it definitely seemed contentious, but
Yeah.
so kind of wrapping this thing up here, let's say things don't go your way at convention. You're not going to be one of those guys, and I already know the answer to this question, but I figure I'll ask it and let you kind of put your own spin on it. Let's say one of your opponents does win. You're not going to be one of those guys who takes their ball and leaves, are you?
No, I didn't do it last year. Not one of the people in the Mises caucus left. In fact, we only grew.
Mhm.
If I lose, I will do everything in my power, not just to continue to participate with all of my ability, but to encourage everybody who I have influence over to give whoever wins a chance. And listen, this is what we're gonna have one way or another, whether you like it or not. This is what we have. Let's at least take what we have, take what we got. Here's our cards. Let's do what we can with them to do the best we can next year. So if I and to be quite frank, I think that Christine is one of the hardest working people in the party. I have no doubt that she's going to pay all the due care and attention. There are things that maybe I would do differently than her, but I don't think that we're going to be in completely incapable hands if she wins. I think that we're going to be just fine. Um, uh, so I think we got to remember, let's let the body, let's let the members decide who they want, the method they want. And I think that there's merits for why both of us should be there, and we'll let the people choose. And then whatever happens, I think that, and I really believe that all of us will, just continue forward and try to see the progress that we saw in the last year.
Absolutely. And she seemed to have shared the same sentiment. And I believe that she feels the same exact way. And I think that's an awesome direction for the party to go in. It seemed like there was some resentment in some members of the party last year, but
Yeah,
time will tell
yeah,
as to how that plays out. But I truly do think that a lot of the bickering and bitching could be set aside pretty
yeah,
easily. And I think a lot of people kind of want to move forward as a party together to really,
yeah.
change things.
I also believe very heavily in the redemption and the rehabilitation ability of every
Mhm.
person. So there's not one person who I want to see out of this thing, especially for good. If somebody feels very passionately about, say I win and you feel that I'm just wrong for the position and you want to step away for a little bit, I hope you know that you are welcome back with open arms anytime that you're ready. And no love is lost. We need every single person that we can.
I completely agree, and I think everybody else would as well. And yeah, I think, like I said, I didn't think you'd be the kind of guy that would take the ball and leave. And it seems like a lot of people, um, a majority of the people in the LP are just kind of ready to put their nose to the grindstone. They don't
Yeah,
care who's there. Despite the fact that, there's some people that trash talk the Mises
yeah,
Caucus and some
right.
people in the Mises Caucus that trash talk other people. But it
There's
seems
fault on
like
both sides. There's fault on
absolutely
both sides.
it seems like everybody's willing to put in the work and they really care about the candidates, they care about the message, and they care about liberty. So kind of wrapping it up, there's three questions generally that I ask every guest. So we'll start off with the first one. Rob, what does liberty look like to you?
Liberty means the ability of every person to choose for themselves how to live. That there is an unhampered ability to rule your own life,
Mhm.
and to live and let live.
Awesome. What does health look like to you?
Health looks like when you are optimizing your ability to take advantage of opportunities, whether they become physically, emotionally, in any way, putting yourself in the best position to be able to capitalize on the opportunities that come in front of you.
Awesome. I think that's an awesome answer. And I guess my third final question, what do you got going on in the future? And where can everybody find you?
Yep. Well, we are just putting together a small batch whiskey distillery, so I'll be looking out for that to come out here pretty soon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. um, it's gonna be under the name of Burn Brothers, so look out for that. And you can find me on Facebook, Rob Coburn for LPPA chair, or under my band pseudonym. I play in a couple bands, Rob Grizzly. You can find me on there. Please reach out if you have any questions, or if I can do anything to help you. Please let me know.
Awesome. Well, it was really awesome to have you on. Definitely do it again sometime in the future to shoot the shit about whatever comes down the pipeline.
Absolutely.
I got a whole bunch of ideas for future shows, and like I said, you're welcome back on anytime. And you've always been great to me. I consider you a friend, fellow Yinzer. So yeah, dude, this has been great. And like I said, I'm just glad that you come on, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next weekend. And probably lots of
Oh
whiskey
yeah.
and good
Oh
times,
yeah. Yeah.
yelling and getting called Nazis, something like that.
Well, we seem to be good at it. So, well, I
Right.
appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me on. Anything I can do for you, let me know.
Of course. All right, everybody, take care.
See ya.